Hello everyone. Welcome to the Strimzi Community Call on the 11th of December, the last one this year, it seems. The first thing on the agenda is the PRs and issues. And I think that Kate added the draft PR for the self-manager. I guess
Yeah, this
what
is just for
want to
awareness
continue.
if anyone's interested. So I have tagged Jakob and Paolo to have a little look. I am still working on certain manager tests, so there is no great rush. But if anyone does have a chance to have a little look, the main thing I'm looking for feedback, which is why I've opened a draft PR, is kind of where the entry points that I'm putting for calling out to certain manager are and the level of abstraction. So at the moment, there's a lot of if else checks, and my intention is to go forward with it in that way, at least for now, with the idea that we can then refactor in future once we're kind of happy with the shape. But yeah, I've just kind of, if anyone has time over the next few weeks and wants to have a look, then that would be helpful just to see if people are happy with the general direction that I'm taking it while I'm fleshing out some of the other test pieces. Because I've got the kind of main bits in now. So yeah, it's just for interest for people.
Yeah, thanks, Kate. Anything else who would like to raise something? Okay, seems like not. The next one is proposals, but I don't see anything in the list. Is there any proposal someone would like to raise?
I, s-
Okay,
I was
no.
gonna say I saw that Shubham, you're on the call. Is there anything we need to discuss with your proposal? I think I was waiting for an update from you with some wording, but I haven't spotted this morning whether it's been added yet. Maybe it has.
Yeah, I've added that change. I mean, it's there, it's just open for review. I think I've addressed already all the changes. The last one, I was on PTO, so I did it today.
Okay, cool. I'll have a look then later on today on the additional changes you've made. Thanks.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, that's on the top of my list as well. So right after the call, I will go through your proposal, Shubham.
Thanks, Paulo.
Okay, anything else?
There's a also proposal of mine. I think I have enough votes on it. Are we happy to merge it now? That one.
So, yeah, I guess, is there any other comments from Paul maybe? Or we can maybe proceed. I can have a look as well. And then we can proceed, I guess.
I can see Paul on the call.
Yeah, I'm here.
Can you check this 173 to see if there's anything outstanding? Because you've commented on it but haven't approved it.
Okay, yeah, I can take a look at that. Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank
But
you.
yeah, we should try and get that one sorted because that's got quite a lot of binding plus ones.
Yeah, and there is another one. Yeah, and that's from the community user about the at configurable HTTP response status for health checks. And I haven't got time to have a look at it yet. So yeah, I think we should all check it. Or was there any reason putting it there?
We had the discussion. So I didn't put this proposal in the list, but we had the discussion last time with the user, and the plan kind of changed. I guess it was not to make it configurable anymore, but adding anyway breaking change because anyway together we are having the other kind of breaking change coming from Tina with the SSL TLS support where the management port is changing. So I think we can tag the user in order to have him coming back here and updating the proposal, updating the corresponding PR, because the agreement was not going this way about to be configurable, but just breaking change. So moving from 204 to 200 as it was in the past. Yeah, you can even mention that he was on the call. We had such discussion last community call.
Yeah, I think it was was it the 27th of November?
Yeah,
Cool.
yes.
So you can say as discussed on 27th November community call. Then he can run the recording.
So he has to update both the proposal and the corresponding implementation PR.
27th of November, right?
Yep.
So like this. After
Yep.
the call, I can add the link to the recording, possibly.
Cool.
Yeah, cool.
Okay. Anything else? Seems like not. So the next one point is about the ad hoc issues triage, and I guess it's from Kate.
Yes, yes. I realized I dropped the ball because I was obviously rearranging the call as well, and I was supposed to add issues triage, but I did not, and hence we haven't had one. So I'm aware that we're now getting into holiday time. So when people are going to be around, I did have a look at a couple of people's calendars and could do Thursday the 18th at 2 p.m. That seemed like the earliest that we have a slot potentially. Whether we want to just try and do async, I haven't found any useful tool when I've looked in the past for like quite how we would do it async. I think the simplest would just be somebody adding a comment saying, this is what I think for this issue, and then people doing a thumbs up or a thumbs down and having like a discussion in the issue. Yeah, or whether we can find a time which works earlier. But I think, Lukash, are you out from this afternoon onwards?
Yeah, but I guess I can make it to the triage call.
I mean, yeah, you don't need to if you're on holiday.
Yeah, well, if I will have time, you know.
But yeah, so I
Fine by
guess the
me.
question is for people who would attend the call, are you still interested in me arranging an actual call, or do you prefer to do it async? If you want to arrange an actual call, we can then discuss async when the call should be. Um, I guess
And
looking at the maintainers.
yeah,
I think
maybe
we
we
should have
can
the
do.
call.
I didn't catch what that was, whoever just spoke.
I think we should have the call.
Okay, yeah. Cool. Okay, I will go ahead and arrange then. Cool. I'll see if I can find an earlier date. But I think Thursday 18th at 2 p.m. is a slot that would work. But if people are happy with that, we can just go with that. I can try and
That's
find
okay.
it.
It's next week, so
Yeah.
Yeah, fine by me as well.
Okay, let's do that then. We'll do next Thursday, 2 p.m. UTC. And I will so I'll add it to the Strimzi calendar that Jakob owns because we still don't know how to add to the official calendar. And I'll share on them dev and mailing list, etc.
Yeah, cool. Thanks. And yeah, the next point in the agenda is the issue triage. And yeah, let's start with the first one. And it's something for me, I guess, as a reminder that I should create the examples PR for the changes regarding the quick start guide, which we discussed in the past, which came from I guess it was from the session chat loop back off, yeah, from which I created an issue. And yeah, I didn't have time to have a look at that, but yeah, I guess it's in the triage because Jakub, you wanted to remind me about that, right?
Well, yeah, it's kind of reminder if we still want to do that or if we changed our minds and want to close that or
Yeah, I can do that, and show the examples, and maybe based on the PR, we can either close it or continue with some of the option.
Yeah, I think the main thing is we didn't get consensus on the original the original suggestion from the issue, so whether there's a different approach we want to take or whether we just close it. But
Like for the others, I think that you were all happy with how it is, and yeah, I guess it was just one time from the user perspective that someone mentioned that it should be done different. So yeah, it's hard to say because I'm not using that quite much, the quick start guide, to say what will be better. I don't know. Let's keep it open, and I can create a PR, and let's see, how it will go. If we will not have consensus even there, we can just close it, I guess. What do you
yeah,
think?
I mean that's one of the reasons why I added the triage label, right? Because it raised the attention, but also if it's something what we haven't touched since July, then is that really something what matters? Is that really something what we want, or should we just close it and ignore it, right? Like that's an option as well for the things which don't seem to be really important if nobody got to it for several months.
Yeah, I guess it was just kind of, UX or something for the newcomers, but the current state of the page is, I guess, fine with all the informations. There was just repetitive stuff around, that the installation of Strimzi was common between, but yeah, I guess we can live with that. Yeah, I guess we can close it because yeah, nobody seems to, from the community, seems to care about it.
I think for me, yeah. All right, my main opinion is that I think we should keep the like installation specific information there somehow because I find it useful, particularly information about like the amount of memory and stuff. Like that's something that I do check to be like, oh yeah, what level should I have set it to? So I think it's useful for people who haven't really run things like Kubernetes on their local machine very often. I think it's useful. That's my main opinion. I am open to us rearranging stuff, but yeah, my feeling was I don't think we should remove those parts.
Yeah, I guess one of the option was actually to keep those, parts of the starting up the clusters,
Mhm.
but move the common part about the Strimzi installation at the bottom of it.
Yeah, so
So
that's where I was saying that it is actually common. So they are identical. So my understanding is the user's confusion was that it's because it's repeated twice, so they different instructions. They are actually the same instructions, but the idea is you only have to look at one thing. So at that point, to me, it's just a visual. I don't feel like it makes much difference whether it's actually repeated or whether it's separated out because we're maintaining it once anyway. So it'll
yeah,
be the same. So, for me, that's just a visual preference at that point. It's just
Yeah,
where,
well,
yeah, to me, the only option I feel like could be useful is if you have a fourth, which is like just the generic instructions without any of the initial installation. That's for like any Kubernetes cluster or something. Whether that would help, I don't know.
I think it will be anyway, again, somehow repetitive, maybe. So, yeah, the only option I had was move the common stuff somewhere else or down under the installation of the clusters side, but yeah, I think we can close this one. As nobody cared for 4 months, 5 months.
Okay, that's close.
So like this.
Yep.
Okay. The next one is for the drain cleaner and Helm installation of set manager and the cluster issuer type. And I guess there was a PR, but yeah, then Jakub had conversation with the original user that created the issue that it seems it's not needed to configure the cluster issuer. And from my understanding, it's just used during the installation, and then you are not managing or updating the issuer somehow, right? So,
So I'm not strictly against this if the user wants to contribute it, but like I understood the motivation for it, that the user has a kind of cluster issuer from from Cert Manager used across multiple different applications, and they want to share the same CA and issuer. But like on the practical level, the drain cleaner is not like some microservice where all your other applications connect. It's an application which basically is talked to only by Kubernetes when evicting the pods. So my kind of, if we want to continue with that, I don't have absolutely any problem. While I would not contribute it if someone wants to go for it, but it seemed not really useful because yeah, Kubernetes doesn't care which issuer you really use there, and it's really just yeah between Kubernetes APIs and the drain cleaner. There's no other applications which would need to use the issuer the drain cleaner is using and so on. So that's kind of the point there.
So is it that in the Helm, the user can request whether they want Strimzi to create the issuer, right?
Yeah,
So
so if you kind of use the deployment with the cert manager support, then it
yeah,
basically creates its own issuer.
yeah. But the user is saying that they want to use their own issuer. So what happens if they don't say they want to use the cert manager support? What happens?
If they don't want to use the cert manager support, then you have to issue the certificates yourself. But it's not that
Right.
they don't want to use the cert manager support. It's my understanding is they do want to use the cert manager support, but they want the Helm chart to use their pre-existing cluster issuer
Right. Okay.
instead of the Helm chart creating the Strimzi drain cleaner specific issuer.
Okay, so actually the feature request is not necessarily allow cluster issuer, it's allow somebody to tell Strimzi which issuer to use and
Yeah,
not create it itself.
that's kind of my understanding, if I remember it correctly, that it's kind of about Strimzi not creating its own issuer, but
Yeah,
instead pointing to a pre-existing cluster issuer.
yeah. Okay. I mean, if that's the feature request, I feel like that's a reasonable thing to want, um, rather than maintaining multiple issuers. So I would be happy for us to leave this as help wanted. Someone can come implement it if they want it. But
Yeah, like the point I was trying to make there is that you actually don't get absolutely anything from using an existing cluster issuer. Because, like, why would you want to do that? Why would you care?
well, I guess it depends how you've configured your cluster issuer. Um, but presumably in terms of understanding the current public CA certificates that you should be trusting for your issuers, if you have a single issuer rather than multiple issuers, that might be
But you don't
easy. It
need to
depends how what type of
you
issue
don't need
you're
to you
using.
don't need to trust the issuer.
Oh, because
It's the only point of the drain cleaner is that
yeah,
Kubernetes calls the drain cleaner, not you. There's pretty much outside of testing and development, there's zero reason to call the drain cleaner yourself. It's just Kubernetes doing it, and Kubernetes trusts it based on the webhook configuration,
hmm.
which is automatically injected by the cert manager. So actually,
Oh,
it's
okay.
it's not like if you would have some regular microservice where
Yeah,
your other microservices are connecting, then it's exactly the point you said, right? You want to
yeah,
use single issuer so that it's much easier to kind of distribute the trust between
yeah,
the
yeah.
services. But here in reality, you actually don't care about it because it's anyway automatically injected into the webhook configuration for Kubernetes. So you don't do anything about it and
Yeah.
you don't really call to it from your own application. So you don't need to trust this new issuer for anything.
Oh,
So
okay.
like as I said, if
Yeah,
someone desperately wants it, then why not? But it would be good to understand if that's really the case or if that's just misunderstanding, because I don't think we want to have the code
yes,
in the Helm chart just for something what doesn't make any sense and was just some misunderstanding of how it works.
yeah. Oh, okay. Shall we just tag the Razor then and ask them if they have any additional information based on your last
Yeah,
comment?
I think that would be reasonable, yeah. If they still think it makes some sense for them
Yeah.
or
Now I feel like I need to go learn more about how the Cert Manager Drain Cleaner stuff works because that's interesting.
Yeah, even because going through the discussion with you, Jakub, it seems that the user got your explanation or your reasoning. So maybe they are not interested anymore.
yeah, maybe I'm not sure it's completely clear, but it might be the case, yes.
Okay. Yeah, thanks. And let's see next week if the users will come back. The next one is about Streams user operator that should manage only supported resources, and it was triage on 16th of October. And yeah, you Paulo tag the user. I guess there is no other comment since then. So
I will just close it. to be honest.
Yeah, we do have a separate discussion thread about delegation tokens, don't we? So yeah, I'd say close it, and if we get lots of people adding to the discussion of this issue, we can then revisit it. But it seems like people are managing to work around it.
Yeah, it's almost a month since no reply, so
Okay, the next one, did I close it or not? Yeah, okay. The next one is from Jakub Stejskal about updating our documentation after moving our release pipelines to GitHub Actions. So yeah, I guess it makes sense.
Yeah, we just need to change it in README, I think. I will open a PR.
Sounds good.
Cool, thanks. The next one is from Tina about handling missing secrets configured by the Kafka broker configuration builder. And it seems that from the PR about the PEM certificates loaded from the secrets to Kafka, when the custom cert secrets are deleted or the field has been changed, there is no broker restart, if I understand it correctly. So it can go into the crash loop backoff in some point. And yeah, it was doing the same thing even before the PR. So yeah, I think this should be fixed, right?
Yeah, I guess we need to. This is an interesting one, I think, from a security standpoint of if the user's deleted the secret, what are they expecting to happen? But yeah, I think this is something that should at least be discussed and we should work out what we want to do about it. I was just looking at the comment that was linked about, yeah, how we manage it.
yeah, like pretty much my expectation there was that maybe the reference secrets should be copied by the operator and referenced from our secrets instead of referencing directly the other secrets. One particular thing I'm worried about there is not just necessarily the pods crash looping when the secrets get missing,
Mm-hmm.
but Kafka is really messy in how it handles the different kinds of configurations and how you started with one configuration and then it kind of loads the dynamic configuration and overrides this. And one thing I'm worried about is that one day we might run into some weird edge case where the secret is deleted, and it's not only that the pod itself gets eventually crash looping if it gets deleted, but that you actually won't be able to start the pod to update the configuration in the broker to reference different secret because it will be kind of automatically loading, trying to load the old secret, which doesn't exist anymore, failing to do that, and crash looping due to that without kind of being able to actually start and get the secret path updated, because that's pretty much what's happening with some of the other issues we have opened around. I don't know if it's some thread configuration or something like that, where you configure it correctly in the config file you start with, but then it overrides it from the dynamic configuration stored somewhere and keeps stuck in a crash loop.
Okay. But yeah, we should investigate this.
Do you want to leave the needs triage for the next time so we can have a look at this and maybe discuss it?
I don't know if it needs another triage. I feel like
I'm not sure it necessarily needs another triage, but it probably needs someone to think about it and keep it somehow in mind.
Yeah.
I guess Tina is on the call, so I don't know, Tina, if you plan to look into it and have it on your to-do list or something, or
Yeah, I'm happy to look into it. I sort of forgotten about it, but now, yeah, I can go have a look and pull people attention where the discussion need to happen.
yeah, then maybe we can remove the triage label and leave it
You can
Yes.
assign to me.
Yeah, perfect. Cool, thanks. The next one is about Strimzi operator reconcile loop is indefinitely stuck. And I guess from the read I have, it seems that there is some issue with the Kafka connector connecting to the MongoDB, and that there is some kind of issue which returns the internal server error, but because of the timestamp, it somehow reconciles this in the endless loop, if I understood it correctly from the comments.
yeah, so the problem is that when the connector deployment fails, we normally try to give users the most detailed error message in the status of the resource to actually give them a bit more information about what the problem is rather than just say kind of, hey, it's not working, right? But what we do is we take the exception and the exception message and pass it into the status section in the conditions. The problem here is that the error which we are getting there contains the timestamp, and the timestamp is constantly changing. So what happens there is that the operator tries to fix the connector doesn't work, it has an exception or an error with the message, with the timestamp. So normally what the operator would do is it would set the status condition with the error, it would compare it with the existing status condition, and if they don't differ, then it wouldn't update the custom resource. And that works fine if the error is constant and doesn't change. The problem is that here it has the timestamp, and that means that the error is changing every single reconciliation. So what happens is the operator prepares how the resource should look like with the current error, compares it to the existing error which is stored in the Kubernetes etcd database, and sees that they differ. So it updates the connector status. Update of the connector status is an event which automatically triggers the connector watch and starts another reconciliation, which again continues. It again sees the same error, but this time with a different timestamp. So it updates the status again and again, kind of in a tight loop, triggering the error. And the problem here is that in the discussion, Mikhail said that he thinks the timestamp there is by design in Kafka, which leaves us in a pretty bad situation where we can either decide to ignore this issue and say that the problem is with the connector itself, because I think ultimately this is some stuff which the MongoDB connector does in a problematic way, I guess. And we say, okay, this is a problem, but it's more someone else's issue than ours. Or we can try to fix it on our own, but the fix on our own would be to not include the message in the error. So we would, for example, only in this case, we would reduce it only to the core error which is there, which would be like 500 internal error. And anytime a connector fails, not just with this exact issue, but with some other issue which is actually stable, doesn't contain any timestamp, it actually tells the user what the problem is. We would not have this message in the conditions anymore because we would be sharing there only the very rough 500 internal error issue, which doesn't tell anyone anything, and people would have to go, for example, to the log files to see what the actual problem is. So that would help us to avoid this issue with the misdesigned connectors, but it would also take a lot of the user experience for users of different connectors which run into more appropriate errors and so on. So that's what this issue is about.
Would it make sense in the comparison of the statuses? Would it make sense to just compare it and skip the timestamp, but like leave the full message there?
You cannot skip the timestamp because the timestamp is part of the error text. So it's not like the status itself, it has its own timestamps, which we are ignoring, like when the error happened first time and so on. But we cannot do it here because it's like you have sentence with random text which the connect and the connector provided you as the error, and that includes timestamp somewhere in the middle. So like to skip the timestamp, you would need to somehow parse the error, identify the timestamps, wipe out the timestamps, and then do the comparison. But that's not trivial because you probably don't want to have there kind of a very brute hack which just checks for this single particular message, because that would anyway not cover any other errors which might look similarly and so on.
I think it's a tough one. I think I'm leaning towards doing the only showing the shortened log message in the status, but only doing it for 500 errors for now, and then seeing if we hit this problem in future. Because I think, I don't know, I feel like the Mongo, yeah, it it feels like a good idea for us to make Strimzi a bit more resilient, because I do think a lot of people use a single connect cluster with multiple different connectors, and so it's not ideal for Strimzi to get stuck in a loop for one problematic connector. Obviously, they said deleting the connector then does unblock everything. But I think that's where I'm leaning, but I feel like it's a tough call. I could probably be persuaded a different way.
Yeah, unfortunately, the MongoDB connector seems to be a piece of garbage, and
But I suppose it's quite a commonly used connector.
yeah, but it has all kind of problems. It doesn't handle the TLS stuff properly
Hmm.
and things like that. And yeah, I mean, it's kind of sad to screw up the user experience for other people and other connectors written properly just because one misdesigned connector.
Yes. I mean, I guess an option which would solve it for this user, I mean, it makes things more complicated, would be to add a configuration option for you to basically turn
No,
off the full login the status, but
it
it's
just
not
makes our
nice,
life
is
more
it?
harder. Maybe we should just use the 500 error, but add there something like this useless error message is sponsored by MongoDB.
Or do we just say, right, the decision here is if we're going to fix it, this is the way you fix it. However, we're not going to do it. We're looking for upvotes basically. So if people want us to do this thing, you need to upvote it. And if we get, I don't know how many upvotes, then we'll do it. If not, we'll leave it because clearly not enough community members care. Which probably
I
means
would
we won't do it,
say
but
I would say you can close it right away and say we don't do anything about it.
yeah.
Have we reported the issue to MongoDB?
I don't know whether the user did.
I mean, I'd be okay to close and say, well, there's an issue with the MongoDB connector, we've opened an issue there. Deal with it.
I think this is a long-standing issue, so I would be surprised if nobody reported it. But I didn't report anything.
Well, ask the user to go report it.
Sorry, what?
Maybe ask us, if we don't go report it, we can ask the user to go report it.
Do we actually, they haven't actually
Yeah, we
said
can.
specifically which connector they're using apart from a MongoDB one? Or can we see which one it is in the logged messages being returned?
Well, my experience tells me that all MongoDB problems are with the MongoDB connector from MongoDB.
Because Debian has the MongoDB connector as well. No?
Let's tag the user and say,
From the
given
ticket, I can't tell, but maybe in the discussion, because the discussion Slack was pretty long, maybe there was
yeah, I don't know. I think we should tag the user and say we're hesitant to change the Strimzi behavior because we feel there is value in the message in the status. Can you raise an issue about this problem that you hit with the MongoDB connector wherever?
Also, just to be clear, there are two layers of the issue, right? Like the issue which Strimzi has in particular is with the error message which is Kafka owned. It's Kafka who adds the timestamp to the message. The issue in the Mongo connector is that if I remember it correctly, it's calling the validation of the configuration or something. And what the MongoDB connector decides to do is how to better validate the configuration than trying to open the connection to the MongoDB server and get stuck for 10 minutes because something doesn't work in the connection. And that's why kind of Kafka is giving out this error when it times out, because it's like waited this long for the validation and the validation still continues running because it's still trying to connect somewhere. So like there are these two levels of the issues. The message itself is in connect and can in theory happen in other situations as well. But the reason we are seeing it in this case is that Connect clearly doesn't expect that you will be running the validation of the configuration for many minutes because you are trying to desperately connect somewhere, and it really expects you to do the validation in some faster fashion by more checking the values rather than waiting for some connection to work. So like there are these two different levels of what's causing what.
But the timestamp is added by the MongoDB connector or
The
Kafka connector?
timestamp is added by Kafka.
by connect. So when you start initialization, there's some inter work communication, and this has to complete within I don't know if it's 10 or 30 seconds, and if not, basically Kafka will tell you, well, I've started this task at this time, and it is this time now, basically, to tell you how long it's been waiting. So every time you get a different error message because the timestamp move, the now moves, because yeah, in this case, MongoDB, they just if you provide bad details, you will just get stuck for minutes. But you could have maybe some flaky networking between workers, and This timestamp is not very long. It's in matter of seconds, maybe 10 or 30 seconds. So this could also happen at another time, if there's like some network instability or there's some over issue with the Kafka cluster or whatever. But typically it would be more transient or more fatal, as here just it's just the poor behavior of the connector, but it's triggering this more often than you would typically see it otherwise.
But I guess it if this was an intermittent problem rather than the MongoDB connector just not working, then we would see this happen once, and then the next time it wouldn't time out, and we would clear the status and we'd be fine, right? The reason that we're seeing, because I wondered, do we basically say, well, um, if the same HTTP error code comes back, do we not update the message? But you could have a different message, like it could be not just the timestamp which has changed in the message that's come back. So the fact that um, Connect is returning a subtly different message, yes, in this case it's because of the timestamp, but that it's also because it might have failed for a different like length of time. So I feel like although it's frustrating that it means Strimzi is iterating all the time, I kind of feel like it's reasonable that we're updating the message because we are getting a different message back because it's a different. We've tried the request again and it's still failed. So if you were in a scenario where most of the time everything was working, but then occasionally something timed out, you wouldn't get this iterating forever. You would get the timeout, you'd add the message, and the next time it would work, and then you'd remove it. It's because the MongoDB connector is actually not working at all, right?
Yeah, but that's not really like if there wasn't a timestamp in the message, we would still retry it every reconciliation. We would just not update the errors in the custom resource because they would be the same.
Yeah.
But like the main issue here isn't about retrying or not retrying. The problem is that because you are updating the resource, like whenever you update something in the status of the custom resource, that triggers immediately another reconciliation loop because
Yeah.
that's changed the resource and the watch doesn't really differentiate between a user initiated change or the change you yourself initiated. So that
Mhm.
fires immediately another reconciliation. That fires another reconciliation, that fires another reconciliation, that fires another reconciliation. And you have this never-ending tight loop. And actually, the problem in this case was not like these loops suck because they completely spam the lock with errors. But in this particular case, the problem wasn't as much the looping around it. The problem is that it's basically blocking the reconciliation loop for the whole connect cluster. So
Because we do the connectors one by one,
yeah,
or
yeah.
right.
So
Okay.
when
So
you
that is a
reconcile the
separate problem.
connector, it blocks the reconciliation loop for the cluster. And in this case, because of the nature of the timeout, the reconciliation was pretty slow because it's actually waiting for connect to timeout, which is, I don't remember whether it's 30 seconds or whatever.
Yeah.
But because it kind of keeps the reconciliation running for this time and then immediately starts the next one and then immediately starts the next one, basically any other changes you do to other connectors on the same connect cluster or to the connect cluster itself, they are basically blocked by this.
Because we're not reconciling the connectors in parallel because we want to have a single request through to the connect. We don't want to be having multiple in-flight requests to the connect endpoint, presumably.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or I don't think the primary motivation is to have multiple connectors being reconciled in parallel. The main motivation is to not try to reconcile connectors while you are doing something on the connect level. Like don't start adding new connectors at the moment you are doing a rolling update of the connect cluster to reconfigure
Hmm.
the connect worker nodes, for example. So that's why it kind of locks on the level of the connect cluster. And for the connect cluster, you can have only one connect or connector reconciliation at a time running. And because of how we do the queuing with the watches, we basically time out after waiting for 5 seconds for the previous reconciliation to complete. And unless you really hit the window where exactly the Mongo connector is timing out, the connect kind of never jumps into the queue.
So for all of our resources, when the status updates, we then queue an extra reconciliation
We
or
don't
not.
queue anything. When we update the status,
It triggers.
Kubernetes fires our watch as if
Yeah,
user changed the custom resource, for example. So we don't, it's not like we explicitly requeue something.
yeah, yeah.
We just update the resource and Kubernetes does the rest.
And what would happen if we could change it so that we only paid attention to watches that actually changed the main I'm not saying that it's possible to do it, but theoretically, if we could, would it, is there anything built into Strimzi that's relying on that happening?
I don't think that's that easy to do.
That wasn't the question I asked, though.
I don't know if there are any.
Okay.
Yeah,
And
you
But
again,
may,
in general, I think it's a useful mechanism. If
yeah,
the error handling works properly, that you try it, then you write the error, you immediately try it again. And if it still has the same
okay.
error, then you basically kind of back off and try it again just in the next regular timer-based reconciliation window. So in a
Yeah,
way, when it behaves nicely because the error messages are nice, then you have very crude back-off mechanism where you first retry quickly for some random network glitch.
yeah,
And if that doesn't work, then you try to retry periodically later, but not
yeah.
immediately.
But I guess you could argue that given that Kafka Connect is adding these timestamps to messages because they've timed out, that it's the perfect candidate for you wanting to immediately retry because it might not time out next time.
I don't know. I think that's too much theoretical question because we saw this issue only in this particular case with the MongoDB.
Yeah,
And in this case, we know that this is not issue of it working at the retry because it's misconfigured connector. It will never connect to Mongo and it will be always timing out in the validation phase.
yeah. But it really, yeah. I
So
mean,
there
it is
might
quite
be
hard.
some other cases where this happens and the retry helps, but we have never really saw any of those in practice, I guess.
So should we keep it open for the next time so we can have a look again?
I think we should definitely ask the user if they've raised this with the MongoDB connector. I think I might have a little think. The one thing that's just popped into my head is whether we could order our connectors and basically reconcile the ones that we think are working first, whether that would help this situation. But it would at least unblock.
That's not how the code works. Yeah.
No. Well, that's why I was like, I think, yeah, I
So
need to take a look at it.
what would help for this particular issue is more if the reconciliations are handled more like in the user operator, where you have the informer and you have a reconciliation queue from which you are picking up the next task.
Hmm.
Because then you would actually queue the reconciliations for the other connectors into the queue. and then queue the MongoDB reconciliations when they time out to the end of the queue. And that way it will still be pretty ugly, and the MongoDB reconciliation will be running most of the time, but the reconciliations for Connect and for the other connectors will be kind of injected into the middle. Whereas what you have right now in the cluster operator for all the resources is a mechanism where the connector, the MongoDB reconciliation is running, for example, for 30 seconds.
Yeah.
Anytime something is queued during this, it waits, I think by default, it's 5 seconds for getting the log. And if it doesn't get the log, then it just time out and we kind of kick it out. So that means that any event which happens in the first 25 seconds out of the 30-second MongoDB timeout window, they will never be reconciled. And only if you hit the last 5 seconds, then you are kind of queued to start first when the MongoDB reconciliation ends. And then you will inject yourself into the middle of it. But like you can do the percentages. It's like what if it would be 30 seconds, which I don't remember exactly what the timeout window is there in Connect, but if it would be 30 seconds and 5 seconds as in the example, then you have like 1 to 6 chance that you actually manage to do the reconciliation. Whereas
Yeah.
the user operator based pattern with the informers and the queue, that would basically just queue these events and they would automatically execute even if they start in the wrong time. So like that could be one of the solutions, but that's pretty major
Redesign.
factor,
Yeah.
which I mean would be useful, but time-wise and effort-wise, it's
Yeah.
nowhere close to just saying something like if there's HTTP 500, then we just say in the connector status the error is HTTP 500 and don't copy the error message.
Yeah. So what do we do then? I think asking the user to raise the issue is definitely a good idea because that would help potentially other MongoDB connector users. I think my personal opinion, I think, is that we shouldn't go ahead and update to not, I've changed my mind from what I said earlier, is not change the current behavior in Strimzi, but say we are open to changing the behavior and reducing the log for 500 if multiple people want it. And also, maybe in future we will revisit how this works, but probably not anytime soon.
I mean, unless we're sure that this is a connector from MongoDB, I would update the message to say the connector with whoever owns that connector.
Yes, sorry. Did you raise the issue with the creator of the MongoDB connector you're using?
I'm
Would
pretty
be.
sure it's the MongoDB connector because they are always doing this.
Sure, fine.
Okay, let's stay this. And Kate, you mentioned something else.
Well, yeah, so my opinion was we say we could shorten the log message to remove this problem, but we're not going to do it unless we have multiple people in the community asking for it. Separately, yeah, we don't have immediate plans to solve this within Strimzi, but if people want to spend the time, we would again be open to it. But that's my opinion. So I don't know what others' opinions is.
I think that's fine with me. To be honest, it's 2 months we haven't touched the issue, so I doubt the user would be super sad about us not saying that we don't have any immediate plans to fix this.
Yeah.
But I'm really not sure you can do the connector is misbehaving and just
there is a reason why people do sometimes run, like the pros of running multiple separate connect clusters is that then you have less impact of a single connector being crazy.
Okay, so something like this, and then we will keep it maybe for the next time.
Sorry, I'm pausing what you've written. There is currently no plan to fix this in Strimzi unless we have more people from the community asking for it, or like more demand from the community.
Folks, I have to drop, sorry.
Okay.
Have a nice day.
Sorry.
Bye.
So, something like this.
Yeah, but I don't think we're going to leave it as needs triage, are we? Oh, maybe we do need to leave it as needs triage, but yeah, we're not going to discuss it more. So I think just comment like that, leave needs triage, and hopefully they'll come back and then we can potentially close it.
Okay, we are out of time, and there are just 2 points in the any other business.
Yeah, so I'll be quick.
Yeah.
Anyone who uses the official CNCF calendar, it still says the original time of 8 a.m. UTC for this call that we've had today. We are working to update it, but we have to migrate to a new calendar system, hence why it's taking so long. And then also, I assume we're cancelling the one on 25th December.
Yeah.
Cool.
That's why I mentioned it's the last one this year. Any other business? Seems like not. So yeah, thank you everyone, and see you next year.
Yeah, see you all in 2026.
Thanks very much. Bye all.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.